I used to think my anxiety attacks would last forever. After all, I'd suffered them for 16 years. So what could possibly change? Well, I found out things already have changed. An approach for all the main types of anxiety disorder has made a life-changing difference for hundreds of people. And now I'm one of them. If you are interested, please click the link below the video. I used to suffer from anxiety attacks. They were intense and they were frequent. And, in a number of ways, they nearly ruined my life. My anxiety disorder grew steadily worse over the 16 years I suffered it. It seemed to gather strength over time, while my ability to cope with it gradually weakened. There honestly were times where I wondered where it would all eventually end. Things are different now. I don't suffer anxiety attacks like that anymore. I haven't for nearly 2 years, and my mental health is pretty much fully restored. It took some time for me to finally get better. Although, to be truthful, time was something I had plenty of. Because 16 years of anxiety attacks, and everything that entails, wasn't going to mind an extra few weeks of the same. But by the time it had came to its end, my anxiety had shrunk to a shadow of its former self. I don't miss it. And why would I? Any type of anxiety disorder is just plain cruel. Anxiety kicked me around emotionally, mentally and physically. Anxiety episodes themselves were often dreadful. Frantic, panicky, scared. Worrying about all sorts of small details, ruminating to the point of panic. Mentally, I'd go round in circles and just think myself into distress and powerlessness. Anxiety disturbed my sleep to the point I could sometimes wake up more tired than I was when I had gone to bed. And, inevitably, the misery of it all slipped me into occasional depression. Mild depression is so common for people who suffer from any kind of anxiety disorder. I simply couldn't recall the last time I felt relaxed or at ease. Retreating from life. I tried so hard to avoid anxiety attacks that I retreated from situations and people that might trigger them. The problem was that for me there were so many possible triggers that I was in danger at times of becoming a recluse. My anxiety disorder made it difficult for me to make, and sustain, friendships. Career aspirations took a back burner too. I had to choose work where my bosses were completely understanding. And where me being an emotional mess all of a sudden wasn't going to get me fired. Which does restrict your options somewhat. Not the future I wanted. I often feared that the effect anxiety was having on my relationships might leave me lonely and without friends. I didn't want to be lonely. I especially worried that my ability to work and support myself would deteriorate as the condition made my mental health slowly worsen. And the physical cost, in terms of conditions that come from ongoing, chronic stress, didn't bear thinking about. Because the ongoing stress of my disorder is known conclusively to lead to chronic inflammation in the body. And with too much inflammation, an anxiety sufferer becomes a prime candidate for inflammatory disease. Which includes diabetes, fatty liver, kidney disease, arthritis, heart disease and some cancers. So as well as a deteriorating mental health outlook, physical disability was an ever-present fear. Doubting myself. All this made me wonder about me. What was wrong with me? Why am I like this? What must I look like to other people? What would they be thinking about me? I really did think sometimes that I was just a ridiculous person. I tried the usual remedies. I did everything I could to deal with my anxiety. Medications made some difference. They often, although not always, took the edge off the worst anxiety attacks. I took anxiety drugs for a while during my early years of the disease. Eventually, on my doctor's advice, I stopped taking them. I was glad to stop, for 2 reasons. First, the side effects of the meds were similar to my actual anxiety. Agitation, sleep problems, loss of memory, poor concentration, even some confusion at times. Second was that meds don't address the actual causes of the anxiety. They only work on symptoms, so you remain ill even when you're drugged up. The underlying causes of anxiety remain firmly in place, forever chipping away at your chances of ever having a truly happy life. I didn't like putting all those drugs into my body. And I certainly didn't like the fact that those meds can become habit-forming, which is one of the reasons doctors try to get you off them as quickly as they can. So what next? So, like many anxiety sufferers, that left me having to use a variety of techniques to handle my condition. Some approaches worked from time to time. Nothing was truly reliable though. I truly thought then that reversing the condition was impossible. I was wrong, but that was my thinking back then when I was ill. In the meantime, I was pretty stuck. I had better days and I had really difficult days. I rarely had two better days together. After years of suffering like this, my anxiety disorder was making me grow tired and despondent. Bad news, and good news. Even though I wasn't sure that an anxiety disorder could be successfully treated, it didn't stop me from searching for some sort of miracle cure. The bad news is that such a thing does not exist. There are, of course, people out there who say otherwise. They promise they'll get rid of all types of anxieties using a secret potion made of some secret tree root they discovered in the forests of somewhere like Panama. Other gurus offer remedies based on all sorts of exotic rituals and exercises. A kind of faith healing, if you like. I tried enough of them to know that none of these approaches offer a single shred of improvement to an anxiety disorder. There's good reason why these quirky, untested approaches didn't work. The people offering these remedies simply didn't understand what anxiety actually is. They just didn't understand that all anxiety disorders are intricate conditions with multiple layers of complexity. There's not a single pill or an exercise a person can do that's going to make it go away just like that. To make a change to an anxiety disorder requires a deep understanding of all the strands that have tied themselves together to create that disorder in the first place. Thinking you can cure everything with a potion or a yoga exercise is just plain wrong. Still, the promises are made. And people like me, desperate for some relief, fell for a few of them. But now there's some good news. Really, really good news. If you're patient, gentle with yourself and willing to slowly work through science-based, research-backed activities, then your world can change. My world definitely did change. It changed forever. I didn't expect it to be this good. I sometimes can hardly believe that it is. I stumbled on all this by accident. Some years ago I attended an anxiety support group where I used to live. We met weekly, and although it didn't do much to help with my anxiety, it was comforting to not be alone with the problem. It was on a visit back to that old neighborhood that I bumped into one of the group's members. Well, ex-member, to be precise. Martin had suffered from a different disorder to me. He had OCD for years, and I remembered that he had a hellish time getting it under control. And although I couldn't completely understand Martin's world, my anxiety was generalized anxiety disorder (GAD) with occasional panic attacks. Just to make life interesting, I do know he had struggled a lot. If you are interested, please click the link below the video. But while I still had very bad anxiety, Martin had nothing. No symptoms of OCD. No stress. No depression. No nothing. We stopped off for a coffee and he explained what had happened. The pathway out of anxiety. In a nutshell, Martin had become so despairing of his condition that he'd tried out some natural remedies. If modern medicine couldn't help him, then perhaps alternative medicine could. Some of the different methods he'd tried had reduced the intensity of his symptoms, which meant that he could function better. Excited by this small progress, he'd gone down the alternative health rabbit hole, and then resurfaced with what he called a miracle. Having tried many routes, Martin had found a straightforward program that gave sufferers of all types of anxiety a clear but gentle pathway out of their problem, and into repaired and restored mental health. All anxiety disorders are improved. Martin told me the method he used worked on these types of anxiety disorder. generalized anxiety disorder (GAD), and similar types of excessive and uncontrollable worries, obsessive-compulsive disorder (OCD), and its 4 major profiles: panic disorder, including agoraphobia and other intense experiences of fear or emotional discomfort, post-traumatic stress disorder and similar illnesses related to traumatic experiences, social anxiety disorder, and other debilitating social fears and anxieties. Martin explained that his condition had melted away bit by bit over time. He'd first noticed a slight lessening of the intensity of his symptoms, and then a reduction in their frequency. Over time, intensity and frequency reduced to just about nothing. I remember that at the time he was telling me all this, I think my mouth must have hung open. At times he laughed at my expression. "It's true," he insisted. And I nearly believed him. Of course, now I really believe him, because I've had his experience with my own anxiety disorder. How it works. Martin told me he had been introduced to an alternative health practitioner by the name of Christian Goodman. Christian Goodman is the creator of a very successful anxiety disorder program that is producing outstanding results for many hundreds of people. It's this program that had changed Martin's life so dramatically. Now I'm a little skeptical about alternative cures. I do mostly trust doctors and the drugs companies. Not everyone does, of course. But Martin's advice to try out Christian Goodman's The End of Anxiety program came at a time when I was becoming increasingly worried about both my mental and physical deterioration. I had reached a stage where I really was prepared to try anything, and this seemed like a pretty good bet. My route out of anxiety. Christian's The End of Anxiety program guided me carefully through a set of activities that I could do at home whenever I felt up to it. As I worked through these activities over time, so my anxiety gently melted away until it no longer existed. The program was simple, straightforward, and consisted of several types of activities. Daily habits, some simple daily work that takes a few minutes but which does some of the most wonderful healing I have ever experienced. When you feel like it, activities, some thinking type exercises that helped me change my relationship with myself and my condition. These were transformative. One-off actions, simple but important things I only had to do once but which revealed really useful insights into what I was suffering. Self-care habits, I didn't know much about how to truly care for myself until I learned it from Christian. In truth, I didn't realize how important it was either, until I actually did it. Amongst all the small but memorable victories I enjoyed with this program, I think self-care gave me the quickest release from my anxiety misery. Action activities, there are specific things you can do that over time make you healthier in the mind and body. Very simple, but once I started I really didn't want to stop. So I haven't. Why stop doing what makes you happy? Beginner's nerves. I was nervous at first. Starting this program itself made me anxious. It's almost as if my anxiety was protecting itself from me getting rid of it. But there were 2 things I loved about this program. First, was that there was no timeline for completion, no schedule that forced me to do things in a certain time. The rate at which I adopted these changes was decided by me and how I felt about them. Sometimes I did more work, sometimes I did less. It was like a dance, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow. Except that it was me who decided the rhythm and pace. Second, Christian cautioned me against placing expectations on myself. Things might improve a lot one week but only a little the following week. That's okay. Your only expectation should be that you will follow the program as best you can. The rest will take care of itself. Some of the program's activities worked their magic at a very deep level. So while they were very easy to do, their benefits don't reach the surface straight away. What I was doing was always working, I just had to be a little patient before I experienced the results. Getting started was easy. Christian's plan was eye-opening and inspiring from the first page to the last. I had suffered my anxiety disorder for 16 years, and in that time I'd read books, countless articles, and watched hours of videos about anxiety. Nobody told me the things that Christian taught me. He opened my eyes to anxiety disorder and made me understand it so much better than I ever had before. Of course, the problem with so much exciting new information is this: how on earth do I apply all the stuff I'm learning here? The End of Anxiety handles that question very neatly. First of all, Christian clearly explains the route out of anxiety. He tells you the what, the why and the how of it all. Simple explanations, clearly made points, easy to follow logic. But then Christian offers you a simple startup guide so that you can quickly make the learning work for you. You know, the quick start sheet you get with a new phone or a complicated watch. It's like that. You want to get started now, not next week, so you need some simple steps you can start following immediately. His How to Get Started section told me what to do now. Then what to do next. Then what to do after that. And once I built up my own confidence in what I was doing, I did what I wanted when I wanted to do it. So long as I regularly did something, I knew my anxiety was going to lose this battle. And it did. The difference that made the difference. I'm not criticizing the standard medical approaches to the various forms of anxiety. Drugs, for all their addictive qualities and unpleasant side effects, do make some difference. CBT can make a difference too, even if it eventually wears off for many people. And there are various self-management techniques that help us delay an attack, reduce it, or simply survive it. But none of these really get to the heart of what's wrong. None of these will ever make you better. One thing I learned from Christian is that anxiety disorders come from a place that can be very deep within us. It's not like a cut on your arm or a broken bone, something that can be clearly seen, easily diagnosed and quickly fixed. Our disorder is hidden. It's complex, tangled. The causes of the disorder, the way the disorder affects us, our own thinking about ourselves and our world, and the coping mechanisms we employ to cope with our difficulties. All these are layered into the disorder itself, making it a deeper, much less accessible problem. They feed into each other, creating a spaghetti-like tangle of fears, negative thoughts and distress. It's impossible to see where one aspect of our disorders begin and another one starts. This is where Christian's program is so different from anything I'd experienced before. Standard medical remedies mostly address the symptoms, the surface, of the problem. They get us through the day, which is a vital help, but we remain ill even when we're managing to function. Whereas, The End of Anxiety works very gently on the underlying causes of an anxiety disorder. It gets to the foundation of the problem, and starts wearing away that foundation. Instead of drugging me out of my anxiety, Christian works on the inside, the source of that anxiety disorder. If you are interested, please click the link below the video. And once it starts doing its work, then the anxiety's causes, whatever they are for your type of anxiety, start to subside. Not because I'd medicated them out of existence, but because they had started losing their grip on my life. They were simply losing their reason to exist. Quick anxiety relief. Christian understands anxiety disorders. Certainly he understands them better than I did. I suspect he knows more about the underlying condition than even my doctors. After all, he did in weeks what my doctors hadn't managed to do for me in 16 years. But he states clearly that this isn't a quick fix cure. So you can expect to still experience your anxiety for some time, even while following this program. Things will improve. Attacks will become less frequent, and less intense when they do occur. But while you're still getting them, Christian steps you through an excellent coping strategy that will dramatically reduce the intensity and the duration of the experience. It was a new coping method for me. I'd never heard of this particular way of getting through an attack. It helped keep me upright when things got tough. Which meant I was generally in much better condition to continue with the gentle work of melting away my disorder. I wish I had learned this years ago. But better late than never, I guess. If you are interested, please click the link below the video.